A woman vanishes from a remote tropical island, her belongings stay behind, her dog goes silent, and then emails start arriving from her account. Cheerful, calm, reassuring her family that everything is fine. But here's the thing about lies told through a screen: they leave fingerprints, digital ones, and those fingerprints were about to unravel one of the most chilling cover ups in decades. If you've ever felt that cold, creeping feeling when something just doesn't add up, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button right now, because on this channel we dive into the cases where ordinary people, a sister, a family, become the investigators who crack it open. Like this video, drop a comment, and let's get into it. November 2011, Panama. The Bocados del Toro, a spring of Caribbean islands that most people only dream about visiting. Crystal waters, swaying palms, expats who come looking for a slower life, a cheaper life, a life unbothered by the noise of the mainland. Coronado Island sits inside that, like a thin silver of land, narrow enough that you can practically hear your neighbours breathe. Houses line the water's edge. There are no secrets here, or at least there aren't supposed to be. In one of those rented waterfall homes lived Yvonne, an American woman from California with a spark in her that her family knew well. She wasn't just passing though, she had plans, real ones. She had shipped 2 sewing machines all the way from the United States because she was in the early stages of launching her own beachwear line. On an island like that, the idea made perfect sense. Son, tourist, a creative woman with a sewing machine and a vision. You could almost see it coming together. She wasn't alone. Her partner Brian shared the home with her, and she had one more consistent companion, a terrier, her dog, the kind of pet that becomes more family than animal, the kind who bark becomes the background noise for neighbours. For weeks that neighbourhood had rhythm, the humming of sewing machines, the occasional bark of a small dog, Yvonne appearing on the beach waving to people, living her life out loud the way expats on small islands tend to do. And then, silence. In the second half of November, something shifted. Neighbours noticed it first. The machines had stopped. No buzzing, no whirring, no dogs barking. And Yvonne herself had stopped appearing. Not on the beach, not outside, not anywhere. Yet her sewing machine materials were still there. Her household items were still there. Her life, the physical evidence of it, was still inside that house. She was not. By the end of November, Brian packed his bags. He left the island. No Yvonne, no dog, just Brian walking away. At the exact same time, something else stopped. Yvonne had a habit, a beautiful, consistent habit, of sending daily emails to her family back in California. Those emails stopped completely. Her inbox filled with messages from relatives who were wondering where she was. None of them were answered. A woman who emailed every single day simply stopped, and no one saw her leave. In December 2011, a woman named Michelle received a text message from an unfamiliar number. The sender identified himself as Brian. He was back in the United States, he said, and he needed to pick up his white Toyota, a truck he left stored near Michelle's home before the Panama trip. The message said nothing about Yvonne. Michelle arranged a meeting immediately. When Brian showed up, he was alone, and before he could even reach for his keys, Michelle made the disappearance of her sister because that's who Yvonne was, the only topic on the table. Brian had a story ready. He said the relationship had ended at the end of November. The reason, a secret had come out. Yvonne had discovered that Brian had a daughter, born in 2010 with another woman. He hadn't told her. She found out anyway. There was a fight, a serious one, and Yvonne, according to Brian, had packed some of her things and left. But she didn't just leave him. According to Brian, she had found someone else almost immediately at one of his music performances at a bar in Panama. Because Brian fancied himself a musician on the island, Yvonne had met a man from Costa Rica, and she had left with him, packed up, gone to Costa Rica, starting from scratch. It was a clean story, almost too clean. A wronged woman, a new man, a new country, emotions running high, no need for anyone to worry. Brian also mentioned, almost an afterthought, that he had already sent Michelle an email explaining everything days ago. Had she not checked her inbox? She checked, the email was there, and it said exactly what Brian had just said, word for word. the Costa Rican boyfriend, the new beginning, Brian washing his hands of any responsibility for Yvonne's location. Michelle listened, and then she made a simple, reasonable request. She asked Brian to come with her to the nearest police station and file a missing persons report. He was the last person to see Yvonne. It made sense. Brian flatly refused. He said Yvonne was just upset, that she needed space, that filing a report would only make her angrier, that it would damage what was left of their relationship. He said to wait, she would reach out when she calmed down. He then took his keys to the truck and left. Michelle stood there with a feeling that would not go away, that particular specific unease of a woman who knows something is wrong and cannot yet prove it. And then the email started. Messages began arriving in family inboxes, sent directly from Yvonne. In the first one, the writer confirmed everything Brian had said. She was in Costa Rica. She was happy. She had a new man. She asked her family not to interfere, not to worry, and not to come looking. She also included some sharp words about Brian, harsh remarks about his deception, about the daughter he'd hidden. The family read those words and nodded. Of course she was angry. Of course she was lashing out. It fit perfectly. A second email arrived in mid-December. This one said Yvonne was planning to fly back to California by December 25th. She wanted to spend Christmas with her father James and her stepmother Lillian. She'd be home for the holidays. The tension eased. Her parents exhaled. The daughter was alive. She was moving. She was healing. The emails were proof. Michelle decided to wait until the end of the month. Brian stopped communicating with the family entirely and quietly settled back into life in the United States. January 2012, Christmas had come and gone. December 25th had arrived and then passed, with no call, no visit, no Yvonne. Her phone was still unreachable. Her promise had evaporated, and now Michelle was done waiting. She went back through every email. She looked at the writing. She thought about the tone. Something about it had always felt slightly off. Not quite the way Yvonne wrote, not quite the rhythms and expressions she always used. But feelings are evidence. Michelle needed something harder. She brought in a relative with expertise in computer networks. The mission was technical. Extract the IP addresses embedded in the email headers. Every email sent from any device carries a digital fingerprint, a record of the device and the location it was sent from. If Yvonne had really been sending messages from Costa Rica, the IP addresses would point there. The first email, sent in late November, the one where Yvonne supposedly announced her breakup and her move, traced back to an access point in Panama. That made sense. If she had written it right before leaving, it would originate from the island. But every single message that came after, every December email, every reassurance, every update, every warm word about the Costa Rican boyfriend and Christmas plans, none of them came from Central America. They came from California. And when investigators cross-referenced those IP addresses against the account Brian used to send his own message to Michelle, they matched. Exactly, perfectly. The email sent in Yvonne's name from Yvonne's account, supposedly from Costa Rica, had been written on the same device from the same location in Southern California as Brian's personal correspondence. He hadn't just told a story, he had maintained it. For weeks he had logged into her email, typed in her voice, mimicked her personality, and sent messages designed to keep her family calm, confused, and at distance. With that technical report in hand, Michelle walked into a federal building and handed it over. The FBI opened a case. Formal requests were out to immigration authorities in Costa Rica and Panama. The border agencies came back with clear answers. Yvonne had never crossed any border between November and December 2011, not by land, not by air. Her passport had not been scanned at a single checkpoint. Airlines had no record of any bookings in her name. She had never left Panama. Physically, she was there. Digitally, she was being puppeteered across 2 countries by someone sitting in California. Financial records surfaced next. Investigators found that cash withdrawn had been made from Yvonne's bank cards, but those transactions pointed back to Brian. ATMs in Panama, final days of November, right as Yvonne stopped communicating. Brian was no longer a witness. He was a primary suspect in a suspected homicide and staged disappearance case. And who was Brian really? Beneath the island musician, beneath the easy smile and the laid-back expat life, he was a former United States Marine, 8 years of service, assigned to an elite security unit protecting high-ranking government officials. Archive photos show him standing feet away from President George. He was trained, disciplined, and methodical. The same position he had once used to protect a president, he had used to erase a woman. Yvonne's case is a reminder that in the digital age, lies are harder to sustain than lies believed. Every message leaves a trail. Every login carries a fingerprint. And for every person who goes silent, there is someone, a sister, a father, a family, who will refuse to stop asking why. The truth doesn't always come quickly, but it does come. If this story moved you, if you felt that moment when the IP address blew the whole thing open, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, because we cover the cases where ordinary people become extraordinary investigators. And I want to hear from you in the comments. At what point in this story did you know something was wrong? Drop it below. I read every single one. See you in the next one.